Y'all, thank you for coming. As you know, I'm submitting my executive budget, and I guess the main point I want to be sure that everybody understands is that we are growing. We have had a great year. We're going to have many more great years. And this year, we are forecast to have a budget surplus, that is new money coming in, of $1.8 billion. Now, that's a lot of money. Our budget's usually around $8 or $9 billion on the state side, the federal side in addition. But $1.8 billion new dollars coming in, much of which was totally unexpected. That means two things. Number one, that we're doing very well, and we need to keep doing it. But that means number two, we need to give as much of that money back to the taxpayers as we can. It's when the taxpayers spend their own money that the economy continues to grow. So what we're going to do with that $1.8 billion, as you'll see in a minute, is return about a quarter to that, almost a quarter of that back to the taxpayers where they can spend it, invest it, save it, or whatever they want to do. And that is the way to keep priming this pump to keep our economy going. It's not when the government spends money, it's when the people spend money. They make their own decisions on how to spend it. So we're roaring into the 20s. We have a vibrant economy. We witnessed a lot of innovation, as you know. And since 2017, I've announced just in that period of time, nearly $10 billion in new capital investment in South Carolina and close to 35,000 new jobs. Now that's in addition to the progress we've been making in years prior to that. But those are records, and they are compounding the great progress of previous years. Our unemployment right now is at a record low. In fact, as you know, we have about 70,000 good jobs looking for people. So we have plenty of jobs for people. We just need to get them into those jobs. But more people are working today than ever before, and personal income growth in South Carolina is at an all-time high. We're growing faster almost in any state, adding over 1 million people in the last 20 years. Hard to believe. In 2000, we were at 3.9 million. Now we're right at about 5 million people and growing. And we're growing and we're winning because we're thinking, and we're thinking ahead. We're collaborating, communicating, and cooperating among government agencies, among businesses, among leaders, and education, and it's making a big difference. Last year, I asked the General Assembly to take bold actions necessary to keep us winning. Working together, collaboration, communication, and cooperation, we are laying the groundwork for historic reform that's evidenced by the record number of executive budget proposals that were accepted by the legislature last year, and we want to do that again this year. We need to be bold. My budget continues to invest in our people and our priorities while keeping faith with the taxpayers to fund our critical needs and return the rest back to the taxpayers. That is, the government should not take more than it needs to fund the critical needs of the state. We could always find things to spend money on. We could gold plate the dome if we wanted to, but that's not a critical need. And what we need to do is return taxpayer money that was unexpected, that's more than our critical need, back to the taxpayers, and that's what we're doing with almost 25% of this new money that is coming in. 1.8 billion more are coming in than we expected, as I mentioned, and we're going to return 25% almost of that to the taxpayers, and this is how we're going to do it. Number one is tax reform. South Carolina's personal income tax rate of 7% is the highest in the Southeast and the 12th highest in the nation. That's our income tax rate, 7%. Georgia, North Carolina, other states are cutting their income tax rates. States around us, as well as in other parts of the country, have cut their rates, enhancing their competitiveness at our expense. My budget cuts personal income taxes by $160 million this year, and over a period of 5 years is $2.6 million, down to 6% over 5 years. In addition, this budget sends $250 million back to the taxpayers in the form of rebate checks. In addition, we will eliminate all state income taxes on retirement pay for career military veterans, first responders, as well as retired state and federal law enforcement officers, firefighters, and peace officers. Those men and women must be secure in their positions. We owe them our safety, and we depend on them. All of these steps add up to about $420 million back to the taxpayers. It's for them to invest, spend, save in ways that they believe are wise and the best for them. Point number 2, education. We're taking bold steps in education to reform and empower the next generation's workforce. Our investment into education this time will be the most significant ever. We know that teachers are leaving the classrooms at an alarming rate, with almost half of them, new teachers, leaving in the first 5 years of their employment. We must reverse this trend. To attract and retain talented classroom teachers, we must provide competitive starting salaries and career salaries. Last year, we began this process. We raised all teacher salaries. This year, my executive budget proposes providing each teacher with a $3,000 pay raise. $3,000 means an average of a 7% raise per teacher. In 2006, the General Assembly funded 4-day, 4-year-old kindergarten programs for the Medicaid-eligible children. Those are the lower-income children in the public schools and private daycare centers. Currently, 62 school districts out of 79 are eligible to participate. 17 districts are not eligible to participate. That means those children cannot participate in those 17 districts. That leaves about 13,000 lower-income children at risk in 17 urban and suburban school districts with no full-day, 4-year kindergarten. That's not good. My executive budget will provide every lower-income 4-year-old child in South Carolina with the opportunity to attend full-day kindergarten at the public, private, or parochial or religious institution of the parents' choosing. That is, every lower-income child will have the opportunity to do that, to go to this. We want to unleash the free market, which that will do, into early childhood education and give these parents choice and give these children a chance. We will ensure every parent that their child will not be left behind. That is, our technical colleges, our comprehensive colleges, the research universities, more affordable and accessible for all South Carolinians. Last year, we froze college tuition for in-state students. My executive budget this year again freezes tuition for in-state students in exchange for a small increase in funding to those schools. Continuing with education, we have to borrowing money, putting it on a credit card to do it. This is the right way to do it, and now is the time. Also in education, scholarships. Scholarships, grants, and financial assistance are critical to provide opportunity and access to higher education, and that is the research universities, the comprehensive colleges, the technical colleges, for low-income students. It's when the lower income, with people that can't afford it, when we're able to help them up, to give them a help up, that is when our commerce really thrives. We're investing in our future. This executive budget provides an additional $164 million for what? For need-based scholarships and grants to remove the financial barriers of cost and debt and open the door of opportunity for all of our state students. Also, active duty members of the South Carolina Army National Guard or Air National Guard attending college in our state will have 100% of their college tuition paid by the state under my proposal. It is important that we support our military. Our state has a thriving military tradition. It makes a difference to the people of our state and to the people of our country. Point number 3, public safety. One of the main responsibilities of the government is simply to keep the people safe. Everyone is aware of the struggles that we're facing with the men and the women at the Department of Corrections. Every day they must confront contraband, violence, gangs, staffing problems, health care problems. The facilities in our prisons, as you know, are inadequate, outdated, and in some cases simply broken and have not been fixed. This This year, our investment must be dramatic, not only in its size, but also in its message. So, we will invest over $100 million to make our prisons more safe and secure, both inside and outside the fence. We must replace and repair existing infrastructure, facilities, and control systems before it's too late. We don't want a reoccurrence of Lee. Next point, law enforcement. Keeping our citizens safe also means keeping law enforcement strong and on the job. Our state law enforcement agencies continue to lose valuable and experienced personnel for greener fields. Our highways are dangerous without troopers on patrol. Every school must have a resource officer on duty all day. That's every school. Forest fires have to be battled and contained. Justice requires investigations be properly conducted. Correctional facilities, as I mentioned, need guards, and the waterways and lakes must remain navigable and safe. These things are all critical to our future. So, this budget dedicates over $60 million new dollars for law enforcement pay rates, for troopers, SLED agents, wildlife officers, probation agents, firefighters, correction officers, forest services, and emergency service personnel. And this year, we will be placing a school resource officer in every school, in every district in the state of South Carolina. Continuing with public safety, as I mentioned, our military tradition and strength is critical to our future and getting more so every day. And during times of national or state emergency, we call on our National Guard to do a lot of things. They deploy to defend the country and us. They evacuate and secure our coast. These brave men and women are known around the world for their services and sacrifice. In fact, year after year, our National Guard is rated #1 in readiness in the United States. That means they're ready for whatever challenges come their way. The conditions of many of our armories, however, are unsafe, unusable, or inadequate for training and drill. This budget provides a significant reinvestment to improve the condition of our National Guard armories, which will strengthen recruitment, retention, and the morale of our troops. Next, our state employees also involved in public safety and public functions. We face recruitment and retention challenges, not only with the teachers and troopers and guards and others I mentioned, but also with the very valuable talent, experienced talent at our state agencies. Our booming economy and record low employment sometimes put agencies at a disadvantage with the private sector when they're recruiting employees because they can be paid more elsewhere. But government should be run like a business, so it's got to compete like a business. So if we're going to compete like a business, we have to be able to pay and keep our people. I believe the question of state employee compensation needs re-examination. I believe that across-the-board raises for state employees across the board are less effective than those based on performance, merit, success, and longevity. Agency directors who know their personnel should be empowered to incentivize their own personnel. This budget, therefore, takes the $33 million approximately, which is almost equal to a 2% across-the-board employee pay raise, and directs that those same funds be used instead for merit-based pay raises by the agency directors. And then, speaking of those employees, our state pension system, as you know, it is unfunded. We have problems. We're fixing it. The liability continues to grow every day. The enrollment of new employees in this antiquated retirement system, which businesses and others are abandoning around the country, only makes things worse. This budget proposes closing enrollment in the state's pension plan for brand new employees and requires new employees instead to enroll in the state's existing 401k retirement plan, which is currently optional. Brings us to point 4, and that is public confidence. If the people do not have confidence in the government, then all things falter. Finally, therefore, this budget takes an unprecedented step toward maintaining the public's trust in government by implementing new procedures to ensure transparency in the appropriations process. You've been recently reading about the lack of transparency in that process. Last year, as in past years, the General Assembly appropriated substantial taxpayer dollars, as about $21 million, to various agencies to be spent for vague purposes like, quote, parks revitalization and, quote, sports marketing. Neither the citizens nor the agency heads who received those $21 million and who did not ask for it could not identify who the recipients of those funds were or who had placed them in the budget. That is not a healthy system. Since becoming governor, I have vetoed those items every time, but there's a better way for us to do this. There's no doubt that it is time for these appropriations to be publicly disclosed, debated, and allowed to stand on their own merits. To that end, my budget appropriates almost the same amount of funds to those agencies, but with the caveat and condition and requirement that they be awarded through a public competitive grants process, with all applications for those funds and all awards placed online and the decision-making process to be public. That will allow for public scrutiny and total transparency. Finally, to close, I'll stop where we started. South Carolina is moving up. There's no doubt that our prosperity is based on many great decisions, solid decisions over the years, is increasing. We must keep doing that. Now, the way to stop that is to overtax the people. The way to be sure that we continue is to take what we need for critical services and give the rest back to the people, or not take it from them in the first place. History shows that for prosperity to continue, you must have low taxes, low regulations, and you must get out of the way of the free market and let the people earn, spend, invest their own money and make their own decisions. Last year, there was unprecedented communication, collaboration, and cooperation between the governor's office, the General Assembly, and others involved. Working together with the General Assembly, we were able to agree on 60 of the proposals that I had in last year's budget. I'm hoping we can do that and more this time. I want this year to be another great year for collaboration, for cooperation and communication, and not for competition among those of us in this building. So I say again, finally, let us be bold, let us act on behalf of the future of the sons and the daughters of South Carolina. Let us build a strong foundation that will last into the future so that they may receive a state as bright with promise as the one that we were blessed to inherit. With that, I'll be glad to take your questions. Well, as you know, Brian Sterling, Director of the Department of Corrections, has made it clear the conditions in the prisons. There's no doubt we need to correct a number of things. The example by the riots at Lee were a good one. Now, some of that is because of the lack of funds for personnel and for equipment and keeping the buildings up, but a part of that also is the intransigence of the Federal Communications Commission in not allowing us to block the cell phone signals that go into the prisons. We have the capability of doing that, but they're not allowing it to do it, not allowing us to do it, or other places. The result is you have gangs inside, you have criminal enterprises going on from the safety of one's jail cell with the cell phones that seemingly can just come in almost no matter what we do. So we have to do, but also we're having some reentry work done that is also very innovative that will take those nonviolent people on the way out and orient them so that they will be able to work, get a job, and support themselves. But we have to spend some money to get some of those things done, but that'll be a good investment, and that's why I'm calling on the General Assembly to do that. Yes, sir. I don't put it that way. I say we just go cut taxes. We're not spending money on taxes. We're just not taking it.
Last week, Senate Majority Leader Shane Massey was speaking to reporters at a legislative workshop, and he said that you're going to hear a lot about tax cuts, tax relief, tax reform in 2020, but the likelihood of that happening this year, probably not super realistic. I'm wondering what your response is.
Well, he's exactly right. We are going to hear a lot about tax cuts and tax relief, and you're going to hear it from me. Because when we are booming like we are now, and we are taking in $1.8 billion more than last year, about half of which is unexpected, now is the time to keep the faith with the people. We need to spend the money on the critical needs, but don't spend every dime that comes in just because it's coming in. If we give that money back to the people in form of rebates, and if we lessen the amount that we take from them in the future, would be the result of the proof of what is happening here with our expansion. What does that do? That guarantees more expansion in the future. Reinvestment in the people, letting them have their own money, spend their money. That is what is causing this boom that we are experiencing. So we must continue that. It's like the goose that laid the golden egg. Y'all remember that story? Well, if we spend everything, then the goose is gone. We have to give some of that back to the goose to keep that goose working and moving, and that's what we're doing.
Beyond Shane Massey, do you have any, do you know of any legislative leaders that are backing your tax relief plan?
I will say we've had a lot of conversations, and the leadership is showing interest. We've met with Chairman Leatherman and the Speaker and Chairman Smith, and had numerous conversations, and I'm confident that if the people of this state want to continue to grow, there are people that have jobs now that have been looking for them for a long time. They have jobs. We're growing. If we want to keep that going, the way to do that is to get those taxes down low so we can outcompete the competition that is all around us. And I think that message is one that if it is delivered to the lawmakers, they will certainly agree if they have any hesitation at all.
Governor, can you talk about why you went with merit-based for state employees as opposed to across the board for teachers?
Well, the teachers in our state have been have not been paid as much as they need to be paid. And we're having teachers leave because they're brighter pastures elsewhere. I mean, very, very competent teachers that we want to keep. We don't have enough of them, and we want to do that. That is the best way, we believe, to deliver that message, that we value that excellence, and we want them to be a part of this great prosperity we're having in South Carolina. On the other hand, across the board, raises for state employees is an old way of doing things, and it has been demonstrated in private business as well as other places that when you have a director who knows the talents and the performance of the employees, that would be the best way to do that at this time. Merit-based. It works every time it's tried.
Any other improvements to education, K through 12 specifically, as far as classroom improvements, conditions? That's also that teachers talk about.
Well, we're providing funds so they don't have to go out and buy pencils and notebook paper and all of those sorts of things. Whatever we can do to make those classrooms work better is what we want to do. This 4K, we know the evidence is in all over the country. If a child goes into 5K and they're not ready, they probably never go get ready. They'll never catch up. And we see them in the third grade is where it becomes quite obvious that they've missed something. And I mean, we have college students that have to have remedial work in this state here. Well, we don't need to, we know how to fix that. And that 4K kindergarten, we believe, is the way to do it. If people have plenty of money, then it's not a problem. They can find some place to go. But it's those with the lower incomes that are having difficulty, and that's what this is aimed to do. We want every child in our state, no matter of income, to have a good 4K kindergarten program available to them. And by removing these district lines, having choice, having the free enterprise enter into that arena, I think we will see astounding results.
Governor, in your plan, you talk about the Department of Corrections and providing millions of dollars towards the infrastructure of the prison system. Can you talk a little bit more about perhaps if any of that funding would perhaps maybe go towards the officers themselves or any sorts of trainings or any programs?
Well, you talking about in the prisons?
Yes.
Yes, that's what Director Sterling has been pioneering. I don't think there's anything out there in the country that's better than what he has been doing and what he plans to do. But we've got to help him. We have to have some money for that. That's a good investment because we need to keep the people go to prison as punishment, not for punishment. And the people who have families outside, those families haven't done anything. And we don't want these kind of riots happening where innocent prisoners, I guess you could call them, I mean, they're not a part of the riot, yet they're being killed. So we have much work to do there. But the people as I've mentioned before, the people of South Carolina are unique in the eyes of business leaders from around the world. They want to come here because they see the innovation and they see the strength of our people. Part of that is our military tradition. But whatever we can do to strengthen our people, to educate them and get them into that workforce, particularly when we have 70,000 jobs looking for people right now, is a good thing.
Back to the rebates for a minute. There are those that criticize it as a gimmick. What do you say to that?
You ask the people that get them and see what they think. I mean, when it is, people have a tendency to distrust their government because they see secret things happening. This is all over the country. They listen to people on television. They don't believe what they're saying, and for good reason. But when we say as a government in South Carolina that we're going to have taxes, because we need to have taxes to run the critical functions that government has. But if more money comes in than we need to run those functions, it ought to go back to those taxpayers and let them spend it however they want to spend it, on their children or invest it or whatever it is they want to do. It is the people spending their money that causes the economy to grow because of competition and choices. Those are much wiser, important expenditures and investments than sometimes what the government does when it's not their money. They're spending other people's money. The facts around the country have shown that spending in the private sector is more productive to the prosperity of a place, a state, or a country than spending by the government.
Do you plan to invest any additional dollars into fighting the opioid epidemic here in the state?
Yes, as you know, we had a task force put together 2 years ago. They are still meeting and operating, and whatever recommendations, whatever needs they have, we'll do all we can to meet it. It's still a crisis. We don't hear as much about it as we did a couple of years ago.
Governor, last year there was a pretty large fight, especially in the House, when it came to funding for the Department of Social Services. There was a lot of frustration from lawmakers who felt like DSS wasn't being forthcoming about cases about children, et cetera. You obviously brought in a new director.
That's right.
I'm wondering if you can talk about how that relationship.
Well, I think we're making great progress. Michael Leach is doing a superior job. He's gained the trust of Judge Richard Gergel, who lives in Charleston now, the federal judge. He says so. The judge does. We've got a lot of work to do, but we'll take it one step at a time. But we're headed in the right direction. Yes. Let me mention this. As I've said about education, being weak in an area is not good, but being weak and not recognizing it and not doing something about it is what's bad. That's what we're doing in education. We know we've got some weak spots, particularly some rural areas, but a lot of the urban areas where you have poverty, you have low income. But not doing something about it is what is bad. And we took steps last year with teacher pay and other things, and we're taking more this year to send the message not only to those outside our state or those who are interested in our state, as our citizens, that we know what the problems are and we're taking steps to fix it. But we are also sending a message to very clear message to the parents of all the children that their children will not be left behind. Now that is a very comforting thought. So we've got to deliver on that. And that is why I'm calling for this 4K investment and bringing free enterprise into the education system at that level and other levels. And I'm confident that we will have good results. You take it one step at a time. The number of steps have been taken over the years. This is another big step that we need to take, but we've got to educate the children. The people of our state are strong. That's why people around the world are so envious of our people. Well, we got to be sure that we educate them and get them into the happiness and prosperity that's produced by having a job that you like.
Governor, you talked quickly about federal funding as part of the budget. Are there any plans for the state of South Carolina to sign on to the National Refugee Resettlement Program?
We are studying that.
Do you know when you'll make a decision on that?
What he said.
Governor, I know with the amount of highway patrol officers, the number of sworn vacancies y'all have, how important is it to try, especially with the new chief and the new public safety in charge, trying to get these vacancies filled and try to get highway safe with these funding?
I'd say it's very important, and that our highway, the troopers are often the first face people see on either if they happen to get a ticket or a warning, or that they see representing the state on the highways. It's important to have good men and women in those positions and to have plenty of them. We're short right now. We need to fill those ranks, and we intend to do so. Let me mention this. I want to show y'all. Is Reggie Gaines back there, the budget director? Excuse me, Brian Gaines, Reggie Burgess. Brian Gaines and Melanie Barton. Melanie, raise your hand. Where's Brian? All right, those are two of the geniuses that went into putting together this budget. We have a lot of people working on it, but Brian Gaines and Melanie Barton certainly did more than anyone could ask for, and it's a remarkable document, and we certainly appreciate it. Thank you.